Thank you, Mario. The meeting is now ready to proceed. Welcome to this afternoon's Licensing Subcommittee E. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair, but before I do that, if I could just run through the protocol for the meeting, which we always read out for all members and members of the public and attendees, and for anyone watching the live stream. This is necessary for the process of the meeting to proceed. Firstly, can I ask, when you are speaking, if you only speak when invited to do so by the chair? If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Will you please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking, apart from the chair, whose mic will be on through the whole proceedings? When speaking, can you please be succinct and do not exceed the allotted time frames highlighted at the start of the hearing and contained within the agenda pack? If you're referring to a specific paragraph or point or map, can you please try to explain where that is? Unfortunately, because we have had some issues, IT issues, we're not able to send an agenda pack anymore. So the documents are sent individually. So it may take members, officers, and attendees to work their way through those documents. And so please be patient with that. If you are having any technical difficulties, if you use the chat bar in the right-hand corner, but only use that for technical difficulties, please don't use it as asking for a question to the chair. Please raise your hand as asked for. If there is any persistent disruptive behaviour, the individual will be removed from the proceedings and will not be permitted to rejoin. In terms of the process this afternoon, there is only one application on the agenda, and when that application has been completed and everyone has said their parts and there's been a summing up, we will then ask the applicant and legal representative to lead the proceedings so that members may deliberate. And the applicant solicitor will be able to contact the licensing service tomorrow, and hopefully we will be able to publish the decision within 5 days. However, it won't be as we normally do, because we have to publish it in a slightly different way now onto a new website. But if you can please contact the licensing service tomorrow to obtain that decision. Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair. If I could have nominations, please.
Can I nominate Councillor Snell, please?
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Snell has been duly elected. Councillor Snell, you're in the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, the next item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We do have no apologies for absence. Can I please now invite all the participants to introduce themselves? What I'll do, I think, is go in the order. Well, first of all, let's have councillors. So if the other councillors introduce themselves. Gilbert, go on, Gilbert.
I'm Councillor Smith, Stoke Newington Ward.
And Councillor Emma Pluvier from London Fields Ward.
And I represent Dalston Ward, because one of the rules on licensing is you don't consider applications in your own ward. So then perhaps we could go through our support staff here. Clifford, do you want to say who you are?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Clifford Hart. I'm the Senior Governance Officer and Clerk for these proceedings. Thank you.
And Sue Bangini, do you want to, Suba?
Yeah. I'm Subhashri Ramana, Principal Licensing Officer.
Thank you very much. Mario, we won't get Mario introducing himself. He sits on all these kind of legal hearings just to make sure that the software doesn't crash, which we're very grateful for. Must be a really boring job, but when things go wrong, he's an absolute star. So that's what he's doing here today, and we do value his help and support. So then for the applicants, who exactly do we have here? I can see Luke Elford.
Good afternoon, councillors. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luke Elford. I am the solicitor for the applicant Hackney's Garden Limited, and I have with me Seb Glover and Dylan Zane from the applicant company.
Do they want to introduce themselves? Are they going to speak? Do we want to make sure their microphones are working?
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. This is Dylan Zane.
Welcome. And who was the other person? Seb someone. Seb Glover. Seb Glover, come in.
Hi there. Hello.
Oh, yeah, I can see you. Right, sorry, I was looking in the wrong place. Welcome, Seb.
Thanks a lot.
And finally, Amanda North, Chair.
Sorry?
Amanda North, our solicitor.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was now going, yes, of course. In terms of support officers, we'd be lost without our legal support. So, Amanda, introduce yourselves.
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Amanda North from Legal Services, assisting members this afternoon. Thank you.
And then in terms of the formal representatives, I think the only person we have left is David Tuitt, who is from licensing. Do you want to introduce yourself, David?
Thank you, Chair. David Tuitt, Team Leader, Licensing Technical Support on behalf of the responsible authority.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, so I don't think I've missed anyone, have I? I hope not. Please remind me, Clifford, if I have. Okay, so this has been a slightly more difficult. We were getting quite good at online meetings, and then, of course, after the cyber attack, we're getting this in dribs and drabs rather than a sort of nicely stapled together bundle of papers. So please do bear with us if it takes us time to work out exactly where we are. Certainly the main papers came out in two separate bits, one of which contained the licensing subcommittee hearing procedure, which is, well, my front cover looked like that. And on page 1, 2, 3, 4, that sets out the procedure for these licensing meetings. Sorry, no, that sets out the policy. Sorry, that sets out the policy. But the procedure, I've seen it somewhere. Where is the procedure today?
Is there a separate chair's briefing note that was sent to you?
I've got a chair's briefing note, but we should have the procedure in the papers that went out to him.
Right, okay.
Sorry, looking to see where they are. I've seen it.
If it
I haven't
helps,
seen it in
we are familiar with the procedure.
Okay, look, I'm sorry. I'm struggling a bit with these different bits of paper.
Chair, I can run through it if you want.
Yeah, go on, Gilbert.
Okay,
have you got it on an agenda paper there?
No, well, I've just got it stuck up from previous meetings on my wall.
Oh, well done.
So basically, there's various steps. Step 2 is the licensing officer will outline the report. We've chosen the chair. The applicant will then make their case. These are 5 minutes each, by the way. Responsible authorities will come in. Any other persons, which there aren't, will have a discussion, which the chair will lead, 15 minutes. Any closing remarks, 10 minutes, and then final clarification, 5 minutes, and then we send you all off and we consider the case. That's the rough outline, Chair.
I think I would have remembered, but it's much better to have it read out at the start. So thank you so much, Gilbert. Okay, so I think we're therefore ready to start. We only have one.
Yeah, just sorry to interrupt, but just to say that I don't have any declaration of interest, and I don't think Gilbert does either. But just
sorry, yes, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest to declare?
None.
We've gone through the hearing procedure. Sorry, I slipped over on that one. And we only have one item today, which is the premises license for Hackney's Garden. The representations received from the police have been withdrawn on the basis of the revised conditions that were circulated on the 12th of November that we have all seen. So I will invite Suba, the principal licensing officer, to just outline what this application is about.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 210 Ponsford Street for the hours stated in the agenda. Since the draft of the report, the applicant has provided additional submission in which he has reduced his hours and proposed new conditions as agreed with the police. And this document has been circulated. Only licensing objection remains. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. No questions from my other councillors? No. So perhaps, Luke, you can explain to us exactly how you're going to make your case, who's going to be involved with it. You know, as Gilbert said, we allow 5 minutes for this. We've got plenty of time to go into the detail in discussions. So let's keep it brief, but to the point. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Councillor. As you've heard, this is an application for a new premises licence for a new premises at 210 Ponsford Street. The case is before you because there is one objection from your licensing officer, Mr. Chewett. The objection hinges, we understand it, on your licensing policy, specifically licensing policy 6, which is external areas after 10 p.m. Other than that, Chair, and I'll stand to be corrected by Mr. Chewett, I don't believe there's a great deal between the parties in terms of this application. As you've heard, the objections from the police have been withdrawn, nor are there any objections from any interested parties. But I would ask you to note the letters in support of the application from local residents and local businesses, and they are found at the very back of the applicant's evidence. This application is transformative in nature, and what do I mean when I say that? Well, we're taking a disused car wash, and I think it's been disused for a very, very long time. Seb or Dylan could help me with that. And we're going to turn it into something nice for the people of Hackney and beyond. This is an experienced operator, and the proposal is that we are going to offer an external bar with a pop-up food offering. I thought it might be helpful if I very briefly explain the layout of the premises. It's categorised as external. However, that doesn't quite do it justice. I don't know if you're familiar with the premises. It is approximately 80% covered by an awning or a canopy, which is the old roof of the car wash. And it is enclosed on 3 sides by buildings or walls, one of which is a national rail track leading into, I think, Hackney Central Station. It's towards the front of the premises. It's open to the elements and open on 2 sides, effectively. It's open upwards and it's open to the front with a railing at the front. We've cut back our application as best we can in light of the comments received. The only hours that we are seeking from you that are outside of your policy are an hour until 11 p.m. on Thursday, Friday and Saturday evenings. Now, we're inviting you to depart from your policy, which is something that you can do, because we're inviting you to depart from your policy because of the comprehensive control measures that we have proposed. And you will find those in the form of our conditions, and those conditions include things like a noise limiter and dispersal policy. We're asking you to depart from your policy because of the lack of objections from local residents, local businesses to the additional hours, and also the support from the interested parties. We also note that there are mechanisms in place for anyone negatively impacted by this premises to raise the issues with us, or if they don't feel comfortable doing that, raise the issues with the council. We're also asking you to depart from your policy because of the sheer topography of the premises itself. As I said, it is substantially enclosed, it is covered, 80% of it, borders an extremely busy and extremely noisy road in Ponsford Street, which is highly used by vehicles. It also bounds an extremely busy national rail line, which is very noisy in its own right. In essence, our view is that the ambient noise climate at this premises is suitable for us to be allowed to have the later hours until 11 p.m. that we are asking for. We'd also point to the fact that there is a lack of evidence, if you will, that the hours, if granted, will have a negative impact on anyone. In short, councillors, we invite you to conclude that this application is suitable for grant today, subject to the conditions that we have put forward to you, and also with the amendments to the hours that we have put forward. I think that's about it from me. Happy to take any questions from you or points of clarification, or to deal with anything that you think we haven't covered so far, but that's it for now.
In the first instance, there will be more questions, but in the first instance, it's clarification. So the clarification I would like is exactly what is this canopy made of? Sorry if I've missed that in the application. Have other councillors got any questions or clarification? Yeah, go on, Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the hours, I was led to believe it was core hours that you'd decided with the police, and Sunday morning was the one that you wanted early start at 8, because the core hours, LP3 core hours, as you know, Monday to Thursday 8 to 2300, which I think that's what you said, and Friday to Saturday 8 to 12, and Sunday 10 to 22:30. Luke, do you want to clarify the hours again, please?
Yes, so there's two different policies at play here. One being your core hours policy, which I believe we're inside, other than that early hour on a Sunday. The policy that I think Mr. Tuitt is going to refer you to is LP6, which is external areas.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. In a sense, we fit within your core hours policy, other than that Sunday morning, but we are, for want of a better word, external. So LP6 is engaged, and we hope to have persuaded you that LP6, that you can depart from LP6 and give us the later hours.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
It's all right. Just going back to Councillor Snell's question.
Yeah.
I couldn't swear to you as to the materials, but it's a corrugated iron roof. Don't think, I'm afraid, we have any pictures of it. It's not. It was purpose built for the car wash. It's not anything we've installed. It just remains, and we're not taking it down.
And it wouldn't be particularly soundproofing. That was the main thing I was interested in.
Yes, I mean it will. It's not a sound ceiling. It was never designed for that, but it would provide an element of noise insulation, in that noise, can't travel through it. It will help keep noise in, but no, it's not a specifically designed acoustic sound ceiling or anything that we can hold up like that.
Any other clarification, Emma?
Just on that, I mean, have you tested this at all in terms of for example, the flats under the bridge along Ponsford Street? There's two very large, well, there's some quite near. I mean, it's exactly the same position as I have in my ward, where an open air premises, the noise funnels under the bridge and then comes out and is really quite loud in the flats located almost exactly equivalent to where these are in relation.
Yes, over the summer, and in compliance with the coronavirus, we hosted a number of temporary event notices, and they are laid out within your agenda papers. I think it's a couple of the very bottom of your second page down to the top of the third, and that gives you all the dates where we've held events over the course of the summer. We've not received any complaints about those events. We expect that if there had been issues with the operation of the premises and the way it was running, that there would have been much more staunch objections from not just the police but environmental health as well. In essence, we have tested it. We don't think there's any problem. The local residents had every opportunity to object to this application and haven't. And in fact, our closest residents are within your agenda papers supporting the application.
I didn't ask, actually. I did ask if you had tried it out, if you had tested the sound to those flats, because in my experience as a councillor, those people don't necessarily object to temporary event notices, but once it happens every weekend, they do, and by then it's too late. So I did ask you whether you had tested it to those noise sensitive premises under the bridge, and the answer is no, other than by waiting for complaints. Is that correct? Yeah.
If what you're asking is whether we conducted a specific test in those flats,
yeah,
the answer is no.
Okay, because they're quite noise sensitive. There's a large number of residents there, so you've got open balconies, you've got flats there, and as I say, my experience is that those railway tunnels can act actually as a funnel and an amplifier of noise, surprisingly. So that's why I'm asking this. It's not necessarily something you should have done, but you certainly could have done. That there's quite a lot of residents there, and you're proposing, I think, to play amplified music out of doors.
Yes, we are, through a noise limiter.
Right. Well, how will you? I mean, the noise limiter means you have to decide how to limit it, which is why I asked you whether you tested it against the large number of residents in noise-sensitive premises under the railway arch.
Yes, we tested it by holding the events, and those events were held without a noise limiter at all.
So when you set the noise limiter, we'll need to, obviously, I'm just indicating to you now that that's a potential source of issue. So that will need to be done as part of the work on the noise limiter. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Let's try and help on this, but also take it a step further. I have struggled, I must admit, to get my head around these different bits of paper that have come through. As I understand it, the noise limiter condition is the additional conditions agreed with the police at the end of the supplementary papers we were given on the 12th. That says that the level shall be set to the satisfaction of an authorised officer of the Environmental Health Service. We must get on to the discussion, but just again for clarification, we have a DPS who, I'm interested in how this is going to be managed. Is this to some extent likely to be managed as a venue where different people come in with their own equipment, or is there a commitment that you will always, as the licensee or your the people you're representing, they will always be on the premises to make sure that the equipment is being used as approved by Environmental Health?
Yes, that's correct. We will be in charge of the premises. The only people that are changing and coming in are the food offering. We will be running the premises overall, and we will host different chefs, different food operations. But that's how it's going to be run, and we will be in charge of the music systems.
Just one more thing. Somewhere in the conditions, there's a reference to steps. I mean, we're going to get into a discussion on this, I can promise you, because we need to understand what this venue is about. But are there steps in these premises, or is it all level access?
It's all level. I don't know about any steps. It's all on one level.
It may be a condition that's since been changed, but perhaps it's a general condition. Okay, so let's leave it there. If I can just say, we would expect David to bring to this committee anything that, in his eyes, contravenes some area of policy. It's very appropriate that he does that as the head of licensing enforcement. So we welcome David to this meeting, and he's doubtless going to explain to us exactly in which ways he's worried it contravenes our current licensing policy. Fire away, David.
Thank you, Chair. I will keep it brief so we can get to the discussion. But so my representation is in today's agenda at Appendix B2. And essentially, that's a representation on the grounds of the prevention of public nuisance. And this is due to concerns, as you've heard, about the risk of noise nuisance from the use of the premises, bearing in mind it is effectively an open space, albeit it does have a canopy. I should say that in my representation, I omitted reference to LP6, which is external areas and outdoor events. I clarified this in an email which I sent to Mr. Elford and others on the 30th of September. Carried out a site visit to the premises with police colleagues, PCs Ryan and PC Atkins, on the 7th of October, so it was useful for us to have a look at the site. I was already familiar with the site just due to its proximity to the Hackney Service Centre, where we're obviously based, and that route along Morning Lane and Ponsford Street, being a main route out of Hackney. So familiar with that site as a car wash and operating as a car wash for a number of years. So as I say, we carried out that site visit on the 7th of October. Got to have a look around, and being fair to the applicant, and it is a point which Mr. Elford's raised, and it is a fair point that there are other noise sources around there. So other sources of ambient noise, the railway line is there, commuter routes as well as freight uses that line as well. Ponsford Street does get busy during the day, traffic, buses going up and down there. And likely to be some level of noise mitigation from the canopy, which partially covers the site. Reference has been made to temporary event notices, which we received a series of over the summer, as detailed in paragraph 3.2 of the report. Now, I should say that as a result of these, the licensing service didn't receive any complaints. So I think it's important to note that. And I also acknowledge that the applicant has sought to allay concerns by amending the hours and the conditions, which has, of course, led to the police withdrawing their representation. However, I'll go back to the point, which is it's a permanent space, a permanent open space, which would be a permanent fixture. So this is slightly different from temporary event notices, which for me is the only real sticking point, just that this outdoor nature of the proposal. And as has been heard, and I made reference to in my representation, there are residential premises above the commercial units along Morning Lane and the flats at the end of Ponsford Street, and also at the end of Ponsford Street with the junction with Morning Lane, which could potentially be disturbed by noise nuisance from activities at the proposed site. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
I do find it slightly strange, I must be honest, that the condition covering noise, when I read the original documents, I thought, hang on, noise is going to be the potential problem from here. And I'm a bit surprised that it's ended up with the police being the people who've come up with the condition about the noise limiter. Can you explain to us how a noise limiter would work? I mean, would it be limiting it to 70 dBs, or would it be would that be judged from the limits in neighbouring flats? How would you see that working in practice, David? And I'll come back to you, Luke. I saw you had your hand up. Sorry, we're getting into discussion.
That's what would normally happen in from what I understand. Obviously, me not being a noise officer, but the normal process for setting noise limits is to for when an acoustician is setting those noise limits, they would arrange for points around the source of noise to measure that noise from, and then an agreed level is set with that source of noise and those recipients of those potential recipients of the noise. How the police came to reach that agreement on this particular case, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm going to stick. I can see you've had your hand up, Mr. Elford. I've been a bit naughty because I've moved into discussion. So I'm going to stay with clarification for a minute with Councillor Smythe, and then you'll be the first one when we get into the discussion phase, if that's all right. Okay, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you very much. Chair, just looking at the conditions number 13, I just need clarification because we're talking about the noise element here. It says no noise generated on the premises or by its associated plant or equipment shall emanate from the premises. And it continues to say nor vibration to be transmitted through the structure, blah, blah, blah. So I just wanted to sort of clarify kind of, if we're talking about noise and one of the conditions is no noise, then I just want to clarify that point, please. I don't know, maybe Mr. Stewart could help us there, maybe.
Well, that's what worried me when I read it originally, was thinking that refers to plant and equipment, not what is the obvious source of the noise there, which is the music. But can you illuminate, Mr. Stewart?
It says or by its associated plant or equipment.
Sorry, all I could say is I would look at that condition as exactly what it says there. So if it's making reference to plant and machinery, then that's what that particular condition would cover. But could ask from Mr. Elford if I can see his hand is up so much.
Let's stay with clarification. Councillor Pluvier, Councillor Smith, anything else, and then we're going to get on to the discussion. No, let's get in. Okay. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a dog's dinner sewing this all up together at the end, because we have so many different bits and pieces. As long as the controls are in there in the end, then we're probably going to be satisfied. But thank you, Mr. Turt, for explaining that process. Mr. Alford, do you want to come back on that discussion?
Yes, a couple of things. The noise limiter condition was suggested by us as a way of compromising the various objections. It wasn't requested by the police. We have suggested it of our own volition as a sensible measure. Turning to condition 13. Condition 13 creates a criminal offence if we make any noise, and that includes plant, equipment, vibration, whatever, that gives rise to a nuisance. We can't make any noise that is going to give rise to a nuisance. If we do, we're guilty of a criminal offence, or potentially guilty of a criminal offence. The noise limiter condition is a very standard noise limiter condition. I think Mr. Tuitt did a very good, gave a very good explanation of how it works. We will invite a environmental health officer down to the premises to help us set the noise limiter at a level which is not going to cause nuisance to local residents. I'm trying to, was there anything else that there were questions? Oh, Councillor, you had a question about the edges of treads and steps and stairways. That's just a safety thing. If there are any sort of edges where there is a difference in level, we'll make sure that the edge or the coping of the edge is denoted so that people, you know, don't trip over them or come to any mischief. It's a very standard condition. I think that's everything that I had noted down. If there are any other questions, happy to take them.
I think Councillor Pluvier is wanting to ask something.
I've got two questions. The first one for you is about the capacity of this place, and the second one is about the food. Because, yeah, I didn't realise, I should have read more carefully, but you're bringing in food. Is that one or several, or how does that work each time? And given that your condition is very clear about meals, and if you as the operator are not in control of the provision of food all that time, how does that work with the capacity?
Okay, I believe we've done a initial fire risk assessment, and that's based upon just the general escape capacity of the yard as it stands. We haven't done a fire risk assessment yet for the layout that we have submitted, but we think that the overall capacity of the premises is somewhere around the 150 mark in total. That's at the moment. Obviously, once you put in seating and planters and things like that, that will become less. In terms of the food, we will be inviting in sort of a food offerer, but the way it will work is we will still have control of that. You know, the food and the drink will be very much as one. They will be providing the food and they will get a share of the profits from the food, as will we. But that's how it will be controlled. We will be in charge of everything. They will just be tasked with providing the actual food itself.
So that's in the structure called bar servery. So there won't be cooking on site, or will there be cooking? There isn't a kitchen, so I just wondered how that works.
There will be cooking on site. One of the things that we can do when the weather is nice enough towards the front of the premises is we can have a grill type scenario going. Otherwise, the food would have to be the type that can be prepared elsewhere and brought to the premises and served up from the premises.
I think that was my point about you having a condition on meals, and if people were actually bringing food in, they would. It's actually quite hard to judge.
The customers won't bring food in.
Sorry?
Customers aren't bringing food.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that you have somebody bringing food in for an unknown quantity of people, and there's a license condition that they can only drink if they have a substantial meal. So it's quite hard to, over a period of however many hours to kind of measure that. I just wondered how you saw that working. And also, while we're on it, is that so? The front of the building on the plan is the main entrance.
Yes.
There, and so is that a kind of open area where you're talking about having cooking? Is that also the escape?
So the main entrance is directly on Ponsford Street. The area that is open to the air is, if you were to walk in through the front entrance, where you get to the wall immediately in front, or the partition immediately in front of you, that's where the canopy starts above. So it's that strip of land at the very front. It's all the way along the front. And the front of the premises is railings, but they will be boarded inside so that people don't have to look out onto the street.
Can I come in, please, Emma? So hopefully other committee members are looking at the premises map, which is in the more official looking bit of paper we've had. So you come in that main entrance. At the moment, I think it's quite open up Ponsford Street. So it looks as if you're slightly restricting the space, which is, I guess, sensible to control it. And then you hit the wall opposite. Now, is that the back of the existing licensed premises?
No, that wall will have to be built.
Okay, so basically what you're building is a whole load of unisex and urinals and disabled toilets into what is currently the space of the car wash, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and then to what extent are these, you've got quite a bit of planning to go through here, haven't you? So you've got the bar servery at the top left, which is going to be the Westwood end, and studio radio, that was actually raised by the police, if I remember rightly. What exactly is the studio radio?
Thanks. I think it's probably best if I let Seb explain how the studio radio will work in practice. Seb, do you want to just deal with the studio and the radio?
Yeah, sure. So this was an idea for a community radio station that we'd stream, and then that would accompany as a background music people that would sit there. So for us, it was kind of two birds, one stone scenario, something that we could also sublet during the quieter periods to others that want to stream a radio show or podcast online.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Pluvier, sorry to interrupt, but I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's so that community radio bit, that also is a structure that has to be built. Is that because? So at the moment, there's none of these structures around the edge there to be built, are they?
That's correct. It's just an empty yard with a canopy over the top of it.
So how did you manage the tenses?
The tens weren't, well, for two reasons. One, you're not required to submit a layout plan, the 10. And two, this wasn't the layout for the tens.
And what I'm still scratching my head slightly over is that the application is being made by the premises at the front. Yeah. So it's called Hackney Garden. Are we trying to create this as an entirely separate license from the existing licensed premises on that corner?
Yes.
And the thinking then is what?
Well, there are two different undertakings. The Glove That Fits on the corner is another of our premises. The garden area, they're two very different concepts. The Glove That Fits is a late night bar. This is a bar with food offering that is going to shut at around 11, which is probably about the sort of time that the Glove That Fits is starting to open up. We see them as separate and distinct. If it became the case that we found that they were more of a conjoined operation, then there'd be significant changes that would be need to make to both licenses, either by way of variations to each or an entirely new license for the larger premises as a whole. But this is not going to be a beer garden for the Glove That Fits. It's a separate undertaking.
Interesting, because commercially that slightly sounds to me like a wasted opportunity. But anyway, you know the business. I like most people here, we all drive past it or cycle past it all the time, and I've never been in it. It's not in my immediate area, so we know where it is, but probably not. Just, I can see Gilbert's got his hand up. And so the custom, are we talking passing custom here? Because it's not a sort of little backstreet place, is it? It is on a major road. Are you going to pull people down from Hobbiton High Street, or what has been the clientele on your tens so far?
Seb, do you want to deal with where people come from and how the premises is advertised? I imagine that people are going to come from all over to go to this place, but it will be very much on the basis that they want to go there. We're not going to be relying on people just walking past and popping in for a drink and a bit of food. Is that right?
Yeah, people from all across Hackney, but then also people in London that like the experiential offering of an outdoor car wash aesthetic, where they can go and meet friends. And it's also important to note that the food offering, which will be changing on a seasonal basis, will be a very big selling point for people to come down. It's something that we didn't focus on as much with the pop-up, but with the seasonal changing of the food offering, we can really build up a notoriety for the quality of the offering that we bring. We're trying to bring something that is not just a pop-up kind of throwaway burger that everyone does, but more like on a restaurant level of quality, but with the ability to eat it outdoors in a without having to sit down with a knife and fork, if you understand what I mean. And yeah, restaurants seem to do very well on that street, so it's only natural.
On Morning Lane?
On Morning Lane. Yeah, all the little independent restaurants do really well.
The chefs keep walking out on them, I think. Emma, sorry, I think I might have interrupted you there. Did you have any more before I bring Councillor Smith in?
There was just 150 capacity. Just talk us through where the smokers are going to. And the other thing on the plan is it looks like there's a way out through the wall to the pub. Is that the escape? I asked about how it operates. Yeah, that was that.
Okay, so
smokers and whether there's a way out through the other premises.
Yeah, so smokers will use the front area of the premises here, which is open to the elements. They can smoke there. They wouldn't be able to smoke under the canopy itself because it is substantially enclosed within the meaning of the Health Act. The escape route, yes, you're correct, is into the pub or into the premises next door. The other thing to say is that the gates themselves are very wide, and in the event of escape, you're talking about a double gate that opens up that's extremely wide and can let a lot of people out at the same time if there was an issue.
Just on that, is that double gate means that what you could have food offering being, as it were, driven in? Would that be part of your plan?
No, that's not something we're looking to do. Have a sort of a van or anything of that nature.
Okay, Councillor Pluvier? Yep. Okay, Councillor Smith, I think you were signalling earlier.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Condition 3, as Councillor Pluvier has talked about already, it says the supply of alcohol at the premises shall only be to a person taking a table meal and for consumption by such a person as ancillary to their meal. We've been told that the capacity is 150. I'm just trying to get my head round the fact that you've only got 6 tables there. Just wondering how big the tables are, and ultimately, obviously, if people were seated having a meal, then that wouldn't equate to anywhere near 150 people. So I just want a clarification on that issue. And the second point, and I know I'm labouring on this a little bit, but going back to 13, condition 13, my reading of that is that it's talking about no noise generated on the premises full stop, regardless of plant or equipment. That's my reading of it. So I'd just like to kind of clarify that with a lawyer or something. Thank you.
So, furniture, first of all. In essence, what you're required to show on licensing plans is fixed structures. Those large tables that we've shown are fixed, and that's why we're required to show them, that they're built in. Additional seating, additional furniture can be placed anywhere around that, as long as people are able to get around it. The meals condition, simply put, we think it's responsible if you're serving people alcohol at 8 o'clock in the morning for them to have food with it, rather than just allow them to have alcohol for breakfast. And then the second question, Councillor, you're absolutely right about condition 13. It does apply to all noise. I believe that the associated plant or equipment is something that was inserted into the condition over time. It's a very standard condition, where someone tried to claim that noise from plant or machinery wasn't noise from the premises. So the idea of the condition is, as you say, to cover all noise that could be generated by the premises.
Chair, can I just come back as well in regard to the seating? Because we talked about the gate at the front being double, and I can see it on Google Maps here, but there's an area indicated on the plan where you have a kind of box seating arrangement that seems to go, I don't know how far it goes along the sort of front of the property, basically by those railings. But if you look at the map, you'll see seating in the corner there at the front. I presume you're aware of that. Could you just clarify kind of how far they go along the front of the property along those railings, please?
Sure. Seb, you're far more familiar with the site than me. Do you want to give a sort of an estimate in meters of how far along the seating at the front of the premises, the bench seating, will go along the front of the premises? And perhaps if you mention how big in meters the front of the premises actually is as well.
It was just the Councillor Pluvier was worried about, far the exits and the exit points, entry and exit points, and you said double gates. So I suppose the question is, will those double gates be compromised by that seating?
No, they won't.
I think it's worth noting that we'll be doing a fire risk assessment after the build is done to ensure the safety of all patrons. And that might include adding additional fire exits if necessary.
Yeah, but what about the seating at the front?
Dylan, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, the seating in the front, it's important to note that there's been a few alterations in terms of seating with the planning from what you have now. So the seating in that front bit actually won't be there. So there's no permanent seating around that corner. There's no benches on the right-hand side of the premises. That's all going to be clear. So wherever the gates are, where it allow access to like large access to groups of people, there's going to be nothing to obstruct that from people to come in.
Okay.
That's all. The whole front part of that side is completely clear to allow the safety of patrons to exit and come through.
Chair, can I just ask for another point of clarification about this? Obviously, it's indicated on the plans, and that's what we've got in front of us. And now they're saying it's not going to be there. How do we account for that? You know, how do we cover our position in that regard?
Mr. Alford?
Any license you grant today, if you're kind enough to grant one, will be based on these plans. We will have to submit a variation or a minor variation to amend the plans to show the final layout of the premises. It's worth saying that this premises isn't going to open until sort of March, April time next year.
Okay, thank you.
I feel we're covering most of the points people seem worried about in our discussion. Can I just toss in a couple of things and get a view from the applicants? I mean, our experience of big outdoor street feast, whatever, former garage locations has not been great. They've created numerous enforcement issues for us in previous approved licenses. And I think we worry about what it might become. I think the planners are going to worry in any case about access. So, you know, you'll have to deal with them separately, obviously. But from our perspective, the ones we know about already, would it go against your business plan if we added a condition to say that you did not have those food vans just piling in and creating an outdoor sort of food market? Would that mess up your business plan? Because you're saying very specifically you wouldn't do that.
Seb, that's for you to take. I think I can't see why that would be a problem. My understanding is that's not what you're going to do.
No, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, because you can always come in and get a variation on that later, as Mr. Elford said. And then,
just to clarify, sorry, what you're referring to is like a weekend market where many vans come in, similar to Shoreditch. Is that what you mean by?
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be that. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then the other thing I'm interested in is whether you'd be happy to have limits of numbers on it. There are other locations in the boroughs that, I mean, a large part of the problem, to be honest, is it can be people who was mentioned earlier. You say you're going to get a fire risk assessment, which presumably is then going to talk about the number of you're allowed in. But would you have a problem with us looking at a provisional number of, say, a limit of 100?
I think we would, if the current capacity, as we understand it, is 150. I wouldn't like to negatively impact that by restricting it to 100. If you were minded to impose a capacity condition, we would suggest that it needs to be based on the final fire risk assessment, whatever figure that comes up with, rather than an arbitrary number plucked out of thin air before we've done our final fire risk assessment. Because if our final fire risk assessment comes back and says 125, we've just lost 25 customers.
That's a very sensible suggestion. Thank you very much. I've heard that. So come on, Councillor Smith.
I mean, it's not particularly relevant to licensing this, but I was just interested. You're calling it Hackney Gardens, but then Seb, you kind of mentioned the kind of car wash aesthetic as being part of the whole charm of the venue and stuff. Are you going to be having kind of some kind of greenness in there to sort of make it a bit like a kind of car wash garden type affair? I mean, I'm just interested.
Yeah, we'll be sure to add you to the guest list. Yeah, I mean, we want it to be a nice place where people want to go down, and I think greenery definitely helps to break up an industrial feeling space. So for me, that combination and fusion is very Hackney, and hence the name.
So Amanda, Are there any points that you think we should have covered in this discussion that we, that we've previously worried about that we haven't covered? Do remind us.
I think you covered most points. Just a couple of points for clarification to check with Mr. Elford through the chair is condition 21 on his list of conditions. Is he saying that he wants to keep that in as a standard condition? Mr. Elford, it's called as number 21. Yes.
I don't think it does any harm leaving that in there.
Okay, that's fine. It's just that we didn't see, we weren't sure if there were any stairs there, so that's why we weren't sure if it was necessary. Okay, and then the next point, just very quickly, is the additional, sorry, bear with me a moment. The additional hours for the bank holiday period. Are you would you be okay if we ended the activity 30 minutes before the end of that time?
Yes, because that's in keeping with our wind down period in any event. Yeah. That should be fine. That will be fine. Okay, so I think those are the only 2 points I can think of. Apart from that, I think everything else has been covered. Sorry, I should just say, just for the benefit of the councillors, with non-standard timings, it's not very easy to indicate. You have to give an end time. It's not very easy to indicate when things will finish. So it would be 30 minutes before the end time that we've given on those non-standard timings. I hope that makes sense. Yes, that's. I think that's what they were assuming. And then just finally, there's a requirement for a dispersal policy, so we'll be conditioning that be done if members were minded to grant. I assume that's okay with you still. Yes, that's one of our suggested conditions. Okay, that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope someone's taking accurate notes of this because it has all come in bits and pieces. We've got to make sure we capture it all and make it all consistent, which we will do after this meeting. We haven't got time here today to do that. Whatever we decide. Now, other councillors, have we covered everything we wanted in discussion? Are there any other points that you want to clarify? I can see Mr. Smith nodding. Emma, are you happy with, you understand what's being proposed? Okay. So I think then we are probably ready to move to summing up, which we do in reverse order. So in the first instance, if Mr. Tuitt can basically give a feedback on what he's heard today and if he's still got any worries about this that he thinks he should bring to our attention.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've listened to the discussion. I think the concerns that yourself, Chair, and Councillor Smith and Councillor Pluvier have are shared by me. So it's just that concern around noise, the nature of the premises being outdoors, and what measures could be put in place to mitigate those. We've heard from Mr. Elford and the applicants that there's some time before the premises would begin to operate, and I think they'll use that time to make a planning application. The planning application obviously would be quite thorough, so it would cover off things like dispersal transport, the aesthetics as well, from within the look and feel of the site. So go to be quite detailed on some detailed considerations for the premises. So that does allay some of the concerns a bit. I still do have concerns about the outdoor nature of the premises, but I think that we've heard that there will be some measures in place that will seek to mitigate those. So I'll just leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Any questions from other committee members to David? No. Okay, thank you. And so, Mr. Elford, on behalf of the applicants, I mean, if I may say, my personal view is that your suggestion for limiting the noise was probably more sensible than the one that was in the original application. So well done on that. And it's been good to have some clarification on how that will be applied. But do you want to sum up your case?
Really, just to say thank you for listening to everything we've had to say. I thought the questions were very pertinent and very well put. This is it's a different application, and I think whenever someone is making an application that is slightly different, it's natural to be a little bit concerned about how that might play out, particularly if you've had experiences with other operators that have not been positive. I think it's fair to say each application has to be considered on its own merits, and we're talking about this application, not what has gone before. You've got before you a very comprehensive schedule of conditions with some additions and moderations to what we were asking for. Appreciate the concerns that there are, and appreciate the fact that we are in a certain aspect outside of the scope of your licensing policy. But I think with everything that we have proposed, all of the control measures we've put in place, our pedigree and our ability as an operator, you can feel confident in granting this application as we've applied with the various modifications. And of course, if there are any questions about those modifications, you guys are welcome to contact, or your officers, sorry, I should say, are welcome to contact us to flesh out those as you come to write your decision. Thank you.
Okay, and any clarification, Gilbert or Emma, from Mr. Elford? No. Okay, so it's a different scenario when we're doing these meetings online to when we were doing them in the town hall. Basically, we ask you all to leave. In the town hall, we'd go out the back, have a discussion, come back and tell you the outcome. We can't do it so quickly here. I mean, the outcome comes in two stages. Basically, a decision which is relatively easy for us to agree, but then the minutes take a bit longer. But the decision with the justification hopefully will be out with you within 5 days. I mean, you're at the beginning of a long path here. You've still got planning and the works to do, etc., etc. So we won't be holding you up too much, and we will endeavour to get that back to you as quick as possible. So thanks for all coming along today. You know, whatever happens with this application, we wish all local businesses a happy future in this tough old time for you all. So it's great to see you sticking in there. Thank you, everybody. Now the rules are, you guys, this item's finished. You have to check out, and then we go on to any other items on the agenda, which there's just one item. So nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, councillors. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we're down to the hardcore.
Hold on a minute.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you.
Stop the recording.